Have you ever sat alone, wondering why your close friend disappeared from your life, only to realize that their absence was the very thing that taught you the true meaning of presence? Opening question. Imagine you're sitting in a small cafe in Copenhagen. Outside the window, bicycles roll past, people hurry along the street, and the wind carries the salty scent of the sea. In front of you, there's an empty chair. You keep looking at it as if someone will come and sit down. But no. The chair stays empty, and time keeps moving. Your brain hates emptiness. It starts spinning up all kinds of stories. Did I do something wrong? Maybe they don't want me in their life anymore. The truth is, your brain hates silence the same way it hates slow internet. It just has to fill the gap with stories, and most of them aren't kind to you. Science shows that humans tend to remember interrupted moments more vividly than complete ones. A meeting that never happened, a call that was never returned, these stick in our minds much stronger than 1,000 hellos or goodbyes. And so you sit there, waiting for someone who will never come back, without realizing that their absence is already teaching you something bigger, the value of presence. So let me tell you a story, about a friend who never returned, and how their disappearance opened up a new path, a way to listen, read, and speak English slowly, clearly, and gently, as if practicing a conversation with the silence itself. And here's the opening question. Could it be that sometimes, absence is the greatest teacher of presence? Loneliness in Denmark. There's a strange thing about living in Denmark. From the outside, it looks like a dream. People ride their bicycles past colorful houses, cafes glow with soft candlelight, and hygge, this famous Danish coziness, seems to be everywhere. But if you stay long enough, you start to notice something else: silence. A silence so deep that it sometimes feels heavier than noise. Picture this. You step onto a train in Copenhagen during the morning rush. Dozens of people sit side by side, but no one speaks. Eyes are glued to phones, newspapers, or the window. It's not rude. It's just normal. The Danish culture values personal space and quietness. For outsiders, or even locals who are craving connection, this can feel like a wall made of glass. You can see people, but you can't quite reach them. Psychologists call this the paradox of solitude. In societies where people are independent and self-sufficient, loneliness actually becomes more common. Denmark ranks high in happiness studies, but it also ranks high in reports of people feeling isolated. Strange, right? You can be surrounded by candles, bikes, and pastries, and still feel like you're the only one at the party, and that's where the ache begins. You want to practice speaking English. You want to share your thoughts. But who do you talk to when everyone is quietly minding their own business? Your brain starts whispering, maybe I shouldn't even try. And slowly, the motivation fades, but here's the twist. Loneliness isn't just an empty space. It's also a mirror. It reflects how badly we crave presence, and how much we value voices, our own and others. Without the sting of loneliness, we wouldn't recognize the beauty of a single word spoken out loud. In Denmark, loneliness is not just a shadow, it's a teacher. And like every good teacher, it asks you a question: will you stay silent, or will you speak? The unexpected meeting. Now imagine this. You've already grown used to the quiet. Days go by in a rhythm. Wake up, bike through the cold air, work, return home, light a candle, scroll your phone. Nothing surprising, nothing unusual. Then one afternoon, in the middle of this routine, you hear someone call your name. It's almost shocking, like hearing your favorite song on the radio after years of silence. You turn around, and there they are, an old friend you never expected to see in Denmark. Maybe it's someone from school, maybe someone from a past job, or even just a travel buddy you once laughed with in another country. But suddenly, this big silent city doesn't feel so silent anymore. The brain does something magical in moments like this. It lights up with recognition. Neuroscientists say that when we see a familiar face unexpectedly, our brain's reward system releases dopamine, the same chemical that makes chocolate taste amazing or music feel alive. That's why your heart races, your cheeks warm, and your words tumble out clumsily like a child learning to speak. And here's the beautiful irony. You've been practicing English alone for weeks, maybe months, stumbling through words with YouTube videos and podcasts. But when your friend shows up, you suddenly find yourself speaking, not perfectly, but joyfully. Because presence changes everything. A real person, sitting across from you, gives you permission to be human, to be imperfect, to just try. That afternoon in Copenhagen becomes different from all the others. You walk the cobbled streets together, laugh about old stories, and share small things. What you've been doing, how life feels in this strange but beautiful country. For a moment, you forget the loneliness. For a moment, you feel seen. It's like the empty chair in the cafe finally has someone sitting in it. And that changes the entire room. Moments of connection. Picture the two of you stepping into a cozy cafe in Copenhagen. The smell of freshly baked cinnamon rolls wraps around you, and the candlelight flickers against the dark wooden tables. You sit down, and suddenly, English isn't just something you study. It's the bridge between two people who haven't seen each other in years. You laugh about old memories. The time you both got lost in the rain, the silly arguments over nothing, the late-night talks that felt endless. The words aren't perfect, but they're real. And strangely enough, the mistakes don't matter. Science says people actually bond more when they share imperfections. It makes conversations more authentic, less robotic. That's why dropping a word, pausing too long, or laughing at your own grammar doesn't kill the moment. It builds it. Later, you walk down Nyhavn, the famous harbor with its colorful houses and sparkling water. Your friend points at the boats, tells a story about almost falling off one, and you both laugh until your stomach hurts. This is what psychologists call micro-moments of connection. They're tiny, ordinary pieces of time, a shared glance, a quick laugh, a warm, "Yes, I understand." But string them together, and they form the fabric of friendship. And here's the secret. In those moments, you're not practicing English. You're living it. Every word, every stumble, every burst of laughter is a lesson your brain won't forget, because it's tied to an emotion. Language sticks best when it's attached to feelings, not just textbooks. By the end of the day, you feel lighter. The loneliness shrinks. The world feels less sharp. For once, you don't need to force motivation. The connection itself is the motivation. And that's when you realize, sometimes the best teacher isn't a classroom or a book. It's simply sitting across from someone who reminds you that you're not alone. Sudden silence. And then, just like that, the story twists. One morning you wake up, send a message, no reply. Another day passes, still nothing. You think, maybe they're busy. A week later, silence is the only answer. The chair across from you is empty again, and this time, it feels even heavier. This is what psychologists call the gap effect. When something is suddenly missing, the brain clings to it even tighter. It's like when a song cuts off in the middle. You can't stop humming the unfinished melody. That's why ghosting hurts more than a goodbye. The ending never arrived, so your brain keeps replaying the last hello. You walk through the same streets of Copenhagen, Nyhavn, Straget, the quiet parks, and every corner whispers memories of your friend. The cafe chair feels colder, the bike ride feels longer, and even the candlelight looks dimmer. You realize something strange. Absence makes noise. Not the kind you can hear with your ears, but the kind that hums inside your chest. Here's the cruel trick. When people leave without explanation, your mind fills in the blanks. And your brain, being a bit dramatic, often invents the worst-case scenarios. Was it me? Did I say something wrong in English? Maybe I'm just not worth staying for. The silence doesn't just echo, it accuses, but wait. This pain, as unbearable as it feels, is also proof of something important. It means the connection was real. If it had been meaningless, you wouldn't care. The silence hurts only because the presence mattered. And in a way, that's the paradox. The more you hurt, the more it shows that what you had was genuine. Absence doesn't just erase, it underlines. It highlights what was once there, and makes you see it more clearly than before. And that realization is both heartbreaking and strangely beautiful. The weight of absence. Here's a funny thing about the human brain. It treats absence like a puzzle it can't solve. When a person disappears, your mind keeps circling around them, the way your tongue won't stop poking at a missing tooth. You don't think about the tooth that's still there. You obsess over the gap. Psychologists call this the Zeigarnik effect. Unfinished events stick in our memory far more than completed ones. That's why you forget half the conversations you've had, but you'll remember the unanswered message for years. Your brain hates loose ends. It wants closure like a toddler wants candy, loudly and without patience, and so, the weight of absence grows heavier than presence itself. You start noticing it everywhere. The empty chair in the cafe. The silence in your phone. Even the streets of Copenhagen seem to whisper. They're gone. Suddenly, you're not just missing a friend, you're carrying their ghost around like invisible luggage. But here's the twist, this haunting isn't entirely cruel. Absence sharpens our awareness of presence. It's the same reason silence makes music powerful. Without pauses, a song would just be noise. Without shadows, light wouldn't feel warm. Without loss, connection wouldn't feel precious. So maybe the silence isn't a punishment. Maybe it's a teacher in disguise, pushing you to see the value of every word, every smile, every small moment you once shared. Because the truth is, presence only reveals its full weight when it's gone. The question isn't why does it hurt? The real question is, what is this hurt trying to teach me? A search for meaning. At some point, your brain stops looping the same question, why did they leave? And starts chasing a bigger one, what does this mean? That's when the real detective work begins. You replay every conversation, like reruns of a TV show you never wanted to end. Did you say something wrong in English? Did your laugh sound too fake? Was your silence too heavy? Humans are natural storytellers, and when reality gives no answer, the mind writes its own script. Unfortunately, the drafts are usually full of self-blame, but pause for a second. Research in social psychology shows that people disappear from our lives for reasons that often have nothing to do with us: relocation, work stress, mental health, new relationships. In fact, 70% of friendships drift apart simply because of life circumstances, not betrayal. Yet, our brains still whisper, it must be you. Classic human ego, always putting ourselves in the center of the plot, even when the story isn't about us. And here's where the search for meaning can actually flip. Instead of asking, what did I do wrong? You start asking, what can I learn from this? Suddenly, the unanswered text becomes a lesson in patience. The ghosted coffee date becomes a reminder that presence is never guaranteed. And the ache in your chest? It transforms into fuel for growth, pain recycled into purpose. Maybe the friend left because of life. Maybe they left because of you. Maybe you'll never know. But the meaning you choose to build from their absence, that part belongs entirely to you. In Copenhagen, as you bike through the cold air and see your breath in the winter light, you realize something: absence isn't just a wound. It's also a mirror, showing you what you value most. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. Learning through loss. Loss has a way of teaching lessons that comfort never could. Think about it. You rarely stop to appreciate the sound of your refrigerator humming, until it suddenly breaks and your kitchen feels unnervingly quiet. Presence hides in plain sight, but absence puts it under a spotlight. Psychologists say our brains are wired to learn most deeply when emotions are strong. That's why heartbreak, grief, or even a friend's silence leaves fingerprints on memory. Your English vocabulary book might fade from your mind in a week, but the word your friend once used while laughing across the table, that one stays forever. Pain sharpens memory. Loss turns ordinary moments into permanent souvenirs, and here's the gift hidden inside the hurt. When you lose someone, you begin to treasure the tiniest fragments of what you had. A half-finished joke, a quick smile, the way their voice rose at the end of a sentence. You realize those small things weren't small at all. They were the entire story. Neuroscience calls this emotional tagging. Your brain highlights experiences drenched in emotion and saves them in a vault, almost like saying, "Don't forget this, it mattered." And so, every laugh you shared in English, every stumble, every pause, becomes more than just practice. It becomes proof that language isn't about perfection, it's about presence. Loss hurts because it leaves you with a choice, to close off, or to open deeper. And if you choose the second path, something remarkable happens. You start living more intentionally. You start speaking more honestly. You stop waiting for the perfect English sentence and simply let words fall out, because you know, one day, even imperfect presence will be gone. So yes, absence teaches. But it teaches through contrast. And once you've learned, you'll never look at a simple hello the same way again. Reframing presence. Here's the plot twist your brain doesn't expect. Even when someone is gone, their presence can still train you. How? By reframing the way you practice. Instead of chasing perfection in grammar books, you turn your memories into a living classroom. Try this. Sit in that same Copenhagen cafe, order the same coffee, and imagine your friend sitting across from you. Out loud, retell the day you spent together. Describe the cinnamon roll, the laughter, the boats in Nyhavn. Do it slowly, clearly, in English. You're not just practicing language, you're practicing presence. Your words give shape to the memory, as if your friend is still there listening. Neuroscientists call this mental simulation. When you imagine a conversation, your brain lights up almost the same way it does during a real one. That means your practice isn't fake, it's rehearsal. Athletes do it before competitions, musicians before concerts. You can do it, too, with language. Here's the beauty. By reframing absence, you stop seeing it as emptiness. Instead, you see it as space. A space to practice, to speak, to stumble safely without judgment. Presence doesn't have to mean someone sitting in front of you. Presence can be the act of bringing your voice into the room, even if you're the only one who hears it. And every time you speak into that silence, you're turning loss into growth. You're telling your brain, this moment matters. And slowly, without you noticing, the language sticks. So maybe the friend didn't return, but through them, you found a new way to make presence out of absence. And that, in itself, is a gift. Closing reflection. So here you are, sitting once again in Copenhagen, the city of quiet streets and glowing windows. The friend never returned, and maybe they never will. But in the space they left behind, you discovered something unexpected. Absence can be louder than presence, and silence can be a sharper teacher than words. Think about it. Without their leaving, you might never have noticed how precious a single laugh felt, how powerful a simple hello was, or how alive language becomes when tied to emotion. Without loss, presence is invisible. With loss, it becomes unforgettable. Psychologists say meaning isn't found, it's created. And that's what you've done. You took a broken thread of friendship and wove it into practice. You turned waiting into storytelling. You transformed silence into speech. What once felt like emptiness is now your classroom, your stage, your mirror, and maybe that's the lesson hiding inside every absence. You don't need to chase perfection or wait for someone else to validate you. Every word you speak, slow, imperfect, hesitant, is already proof that you exist, that you matter, that you're here. Presence isn't something you receive. It's something you create. So I'll leave you with this. When the chair across from you is empty, don't just stare at it. Speak to it. Fill it with your words. Because sometimes, the people who leave teach us the most important truth of all, to never leave ourselves. That's all for today. I will make more videos like this in the future. Please subscribe to see more.